Hi friends, hello, happy Thursday. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. Excuse me. I'm Lisa Hetrick. Whew. Okay, today we're just going to pause, paint, chat, and have some fun together. No card project today. Excuse me. We are going to just paint together. I had this idea and I just wanted to share it with you. And excuse me, I'm going to have to take a drink. Everybody's popping in. My throat just went dry like right before I went live. So hello everyone. I see everybody popping in. And we have a lot of our Canadian friends with us today. Hello. Okay. So today's tutorial is kind of, it's all watercolor. So if you came today for a card tutorial, I'm sorry. We'll be back next week with a card tutorial and a brand new release, which I'll talk about that later. But today we're going to do a pause and paint. I like to try to do this once a month, sometimes more. And during the holiday season coming up, during our fall holiday seasons and our winter holidays, Christmas and Thanksgiving and all the things, I'm going to be doing a little bit more watercolor tutorials on the channel here. Now, let's just go ahead and dive in. Okay. And let me pop my face in today. Face in. If you're on my email list, also down below in the description here is a link to the drawing for today. It's got a little bit of my hair here. Hold on, let's get that out of there. And I wanted to, and it also says this in the description, I wanted to kind of reminisce about the butterflies that I had in my garden this summer. And they're really starting to kind of die down a little bit. As they migrate south, I guess. And I was thinking this week about this painting that I did. I used to have a, oh, Marie, hello. Okay, she's got her Daniel Smith card ready. So many of you might be painting along with me, and that's great because I'm going to go through every technique as we go along. But we have this illustration that's really just the side view or just half of the butterfly. And it reminded me of this painting that I did. And I used to have an online store. And I used to sell my artwork on the store, in the store. And I used to have my paintings and things in local shops. And over time, I changed and shut down that store. But this was one of the originals. And this was one of the prints that was available in that shop. And every time I look at it, I'm like, I really just love her. She's just so whimsical and fun. And so she's the inspiration today for our autumn. I'm going to do an autumn color mix for our painting today. Okay. And so she's the inspiration. And what I wanted to share is that we've got this big wide open space here for our butterfly, but yet we're going to paint in some of these details on the fly. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, let's just dive in. Let's move some things around here. We'll push this over here. Thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl just shared that she loves to color and paint butterflies, dare I say more than florals. Me too. Sometimes flutters are some of my favorite things to paint. And it's been a while since I've painted them, so it was really kind of the inspiration for today. Now, the handout, I did supply I think it's a 2-page handout with the illustration. If you're painting along, you can always just download this PDF and print it out on your favorite watercolor paper. I'm using Arches paper today, 300 GSM, 140 pound watercolor paper because I love it. And a lot of the techniques that we're going to be doing today are super, super wet and washy, and this paper can handle it. So now, if you have questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat. Just write the word question and we'll be good to go. I am going to be using this watercolor set that I made myself, and it is Davinci Watercolors. So I also shared down below in the description and in the email I sent out, and if you're in my free community, I shared that there. Just grab whatever watercolor set that you have. It's not going to matter. Oh, good, Marie. You fortunately couldn't print it, but you could trace it. So that's great. Sometimes it's hard to get really thick papers to go through printers, depending upon what the printer you have. You could always print it out, hold it up to like a light box or just a window, and you can trace that image right on to your watercolor paper. And it sounds like, Marie, that's what you did. Marie's changing from Daniel Smith to Davinci, her Davinci set. Okay, now, yesterday I was thinking I really wanted to experiment with some autumn color mixes. And this is just, these are called color cards. I think like sometimes when I'm in facing forward, you can see I have color cubes back there. They were made by Sarah Renee Clark, I think her name is. Yes, that is her name. She made these things called color cubes, and I think that they're really, really fun. So check her out. She just does like some color combinations, and I think it's just kind of really fun to go through them and get some inspiration. Of course, you can do this kind of thing online, but I just grabbed these two yesterday because I was interested in these autumn color mixes, which of course has like our traditional oranges and creamy browns and caramels and black. And then I grabbed this one, which has more of our pinks and rose and salmon pinks and light pinks, but these pinks are skewing more warm. So they have kind of an autumn feel to me, even though they are pink. So I think we're going to focus on a combination here of these colors and maybe these two right here. So I'm just going to kind of lay those right here. But let's play with our color mixes first. Now, for this flutter, we are going to do a lot of wet into wet techniques. And we're going to build the color up from the bottom up. So we're going to work in our lightest values of those pinks first, and then bring them up to be into their darker, warmer values, and add a little bit of detail at the end. At least that's the way I think it's going to work out in my head. We'll see what actually happens, right? We'll see what actually happens. So what I want to do is I first want to just do a quick swatch of some colors here. So I might, yeah, there we go. That's still in view. I'm going to focus our color combinations today with Red Rose Deep, Perylene Maroon, maybe, Alizarin Crimson. Let's just go ahead and swatch these colors out. I want to show you. And we're going to do some mixes to try to get those colors. Here's Alizarin Crimson. I love Alizarin Crimson in a lot of different brands. I've got water here, and I have a bunch of round brushes. Right now I'm using a number 10 Princeton Heritage. So I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of feather that color out so I can go from my darkest to my lightest. So what I really love about Alizarin Crimson is that it is a beautiful, rich, deep pinky red. But then the more water we add to it, the more lighter we can get it, right? So we can get that light pink. It's not quite this value of color yet, but that's okay. We're going to figure out how to get there. I'm going to grab some of this Red Rose Deep. Let me grab some Perylene Maroon. Perylene Maroon is just that. Okay, I've got a little too much water on my brush here. Perylene Maroon. Hello! Crafts and Designs by Nima. Hello, Nima. Okay, so Perylene Maroon is just that. It's got like this maroon flavor to it. But you can see the more water I add to it, the more I can get that down to kind of a brownish pink, which I'm digging. And then let me play with this Red Rose Deep. So Red Rose Deep, depending upon what brand you're using, might be called Um, it would be called like rose, or might be permanent rose. Red Rose Deep in Davinci is a little bit different than the permanent rose quinacridone, which is right here. But see, it's got a little bit of brightness to it. So it's a little cooler. So see how this color can be kind of warm. This color is warm, but this color is a little cooler. And I really, really like Red Rose Deep. But I want to try to get, let's move this autumn one out. I want to try to get some of these looks, like this auburn look, French rose, salmon pink, light pink. Now I can achieve this light pink pretty easily by adding water. I want to start our butterfly with this light pink. So what I think I want to do is grab the Red Rose Deep. Let's do a quick experiment. I'm going to take a little bit of the Red Rose Deep, and I'm going to mix it right here. Just going to add it right here. And I want to warm this color up a little bit. So we're going to play with it. I got a little too much water. Let me get some of that water off. Don't forget, if you have questions along the way, just go ahead and pop Q in the chat. And today I'm just going to be kind of teaching on the fly, and like random things are going to come out as I'm experimenting. So I hope you're okay with that. I'm going to take a little bit of this Perylene Maroon, just a smidge, and drop that in. Let's take another smidge and drop that in. And I think that's getting it to like more of a red pinky, which is okay, but not quite that French rose that I want to get. So let's go ahead. I'm going to take a little bit of Stormy Blue, which is, this could go very, very badly, and I think I'm going to end up with purple. Yep. I'm trying to get that French rose look, and I'm really ending up with more of this aubergine kind of look, which I don't dislike. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that mix, and I'm going to come back. This is kind of a cool color I'm going to keep. This is that, what I have right here. Let's start over. I'm going to come in with a little bit of, I'm going to try this a different way. Yeah, let me come in with a little bit of Red Rose Deep. Let's pop a little bit of that right there. And then I really want to warm this up. So I'm going to grab a little bit of burnt sienna, just a tiny bit, and see if I can warm that up. I need a little bit more. And see what I get. Okay, getting closer. Okay, getting closer to that French rose that I'm going for. I feel like it needs just a little bit more pink. Like if I drop a little more pink in here, and I dropped a little bit of that burnt sienna, I can get that color. Okay, it's close. It's not quite that. Remember, these are really opaque colors, opaque looking colors. I'm going for transparent colors. Let's kind of add a little bit of water to this so I can really get a good sense of what that looks like. So as I'm going across here, I'm getting closer to these two colors. This auburn color is more of this, which I call like an aubergine. Let's just go ahead and add a little bit of water to that to kind of see what that value looks like going across. Kind of digging that. So I feel like we have some room to play with this color to get that French rose look to really warm up that pink. I really feel like we've got some little bit of playroom there with this Red Rose Deep and burnt sienna combination. Hello, Della. Good afternoon. I also have this. I want to do a quick alizarin crimson experiment. Let's pop a little bit of this alizarin crimson down here. I absolutely love that color. Let's see. If I add a little bit, I want to warm that up. Let's take a little bit of this burnt sienna and do that right there and see what I get. So see how I'm getting a little bit of that warmer pink. Not quite French rose yet, but that's okay. Let's add, so between the red rose deep and burnt sienna, getting a little bit of that warmer pink, and the alizarin crimson and the burnt sienna, I can get a little bit more of that warmer pink. So all this to say, having your colors and experimenting and mixing with them is really just kind of super fun. All right, and it helps you get to know and understand your watercolors a little bit more. Okay, I'm really liking the value of this color right here, which is like a kind of like in this range of the French rose, but I like this pink that we're getting when we add more water to it. So I'm gonna just kind of create, I just keep hitting my microphone. I'm gonna create a little bit of that. So that was the red rose deep. I'm gonna create that right here, just right next to it. I'm trying to keep everything in frame so you can see me doing the things. But you know, I'm a left-hander, so sometimes things are gonna get a little bit wonky. I'm gonna take a little bit of that burnt sienna and pop that in right there, a little bit more. Pop that in, and I've got a consistency here of about 2% milk. Okay, let's take a quick look at that color. Okay, a little bit dark, but that's okay because we're going to do some washy, watered down effects with it. And it needs a little bit more burnt sienna in it. So let's add a little bit more to that mix, just a little bit, going back and forth to kind of get that going. All right, we're playing. Let's dive in. All right, what I want to do is I want to build up some color here on our butterfly. So I'm just going to start by adding some water. And yes, my water is a little bit tinged because we've been adding and messing around with all of these pink colors, but that's okay. It kind of helps you see it a little bit. So I'm just adding water. I'm literally painting water in to our space. Don't worry about the antennae just yet, but just try to follow along with where the image is. I'm choked up on the brush really tight because I'm kind of navigating around and getting into some really loose spaces here. So this first layer is wet into wet. I'm just going around the outline here and adding some water. And I need to work a little quicker because I want to get that first layer on. I really probably should have had another thing of clean water here. That probably would have helped, but I don't, and we're going to move on. And I'm not so worried if things kind of go out of the lines a little bit because we'll be able to crispen them up a little bit more after a bit. Now, I'm just going to take my brush and grab some of that pigment and just kind of drop it in and let it do its thing. Now, depending upon the kind of paint that you're using, you're going to get different results. So the particular brand, like the Davinci brand that I'm using, isn't like super whooshy sometimes. So see how it whooshed a little bit, but it didn't whoosh. So if I was using Winsor & Newton, it probably would have stayed exactly where I put it, and I would have had all these little dots, which is fine. That's one of the wonderful things about experimenting with the paints that you have, and finding out what they do and how they behave with water. I'm just going in right now and I'm just kind of coaxing some of this paint around to just kind of get those first layers. that very, very first layer of color in. Doo, doo, doo. And it feels, I'm not going for smoothie, right? I'm just getting that first layer of color in. Looks good. Just kind of tapping it around. You can leave some of your whites spaces. See how I've kind of gone out of the lines a little bit? I'm going to come back up with a cleaner brush and just kind of pull that away as best I can and let that ride. My brush isn't super clean because my water's not super clean, but that's okay. We're going to work with what we got. Now I'm just going to go ahead and dry this. I've got that warm, I feel like I've got that warm light pink that I was going for. So, and that happened by combining that red rose deep and the burnt sienna, and then adding more water to it to get, to create a different value of that color. So let's go ahead and dry this. Okay, feeling good. Liking the color, really liking that salmon color. Love it. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in with that same color combination. I might need to make some more, but not as much water. So less, so I'm really getting more of an intense amount of that color. And I'm just gonna start to kind of make some of these shapes right here, coming out of the butterfly, sort of like a monarch. And we're going to freehand it, okay? And you can do it, I promise. Let's take a little bit of this red rose deep right here and get ourselves a bigger mix of this color. You can see that red rose deep right by my head. Getting a good mix of this color. It's got a consistency, meaning like how much water to paint. It's kind of thick. Clean off my brush. Not quite whole milk, but somewhere between 2% and whole milk. Grab a little bit of this burnt sienna, a little bit more than what and just kind of tap that in. And then we can do like a little test here to see if we like that. It seems a little bit browny. A little bit browny. So let's add just a smidge of pink back in. And see how I'm just kind of going back and forth between these two to kind of create that value of color. I've got quite a bit of it up on my brush. I'm just going to clean off the edges here. And I'm still using my number 10. I might not change my color at all. We'll see. Let's move this out a little bit. We'll move this in underneath my head so that you can see. Now I'm just going to go in here and take a look at my reference. And I'm just going to go with the tip of my brush and just kind of paint in that. I'll just call it like a big piece of leafery, right? It's like a big petal. We're just going to paint that first one in. And then we're going to go in and just take, see how I have quite a bit of color here? But I'm loving that color. It's a little on the pinky side. That's okay. I'm loving the way that color looks. Just kind of round that out a little bit. Yeesh. Hello, Maureen from Southeast Texas. Hello, friends that are popping in now. And see, we're not going for perfection here. Got enough of that going on in the world. We don't need that. We're having some fun. Okay, so I've laid that in. Now I'm cleaning off my brush. And what I want to do is I'm just going to start to feather out the color. Brush is wet, paper's wet and dry. And now I'm going wet into, and I'm just going to feather this out a little bit. See, I'm just kind of feathering it out. And then coming around the edge here where this bottom is, get a little bit more water, clean that off. And just, I'm really choked up on the brush here. That's giving me a lot of control, very much like when you would hold a pen or a pencil. And I'm just feathering out these edges a little bit so that we have dark at the top and then we're getting lighter here at the bottom. And we're going to leave that be and let that dry a little bit. Hello, Cherie. Okay, now we're going to go in. I'm going to do the same thing again here. I'm going to draw one here. I think maybe a little one. Then we're going to do one here, one here. Now let's do it with the same color combinations because we're building up that color. I did not make myself enough color. So let's try to make some more over here. Red Rose Deep. Digging it, pick up a little bit of that burnt sienna, maybe a little bit more. Ooh, that's going to be juicy. That's nice and juicy. Hello. We have more people popping in. Hello. Della. Okay, we're going to go in, tip of the brush. Okay. Just kind of follow along that edge, go around, come back down. And I'm going to do one at a time because I don't want that paint to dry, even though you can reactivate it because it is watercolor. I don't want it to dry. All right, I've got my brush wet. I'm going to go in and see, just kind of coax that color out a little bit just with the tip of the brush. Adding a little bit of water to the edge. I don't have any paint on my brush. Just a little bit of water. Okay. There we go. Coaxing that color out a little bit. That one's a little bit pinky. See, I'm just kind of tapping my edges here. And I'm going to go in here and grab a little bit more and just drop some in on that top layer. So this is wet into wet. Brush is wet. Paper's wet. Got a lot of that color there. Warming that up. I'm going to take my brush now, clean brush, and just kind of run over it and just taking away some of that color. All right, I'm kind of digging it. All right, let's do it again. Let's come in. My brush is wet. I'm going to sop off some of this stuff. Pick up some of this color. And let's go ahead. I'm going to do a little, I'm going to do a little tiny one right here. Just kind of going around. And painting that in. Super fun. Clean off the brush. And I'm just going to come around and just kind of add a little bit of water, just like we did on the second row. Might need a little tiny bit of pigment here, just to add right here. Then come in and just pull that color away. Loving it, digging it. Gonna come in, oop, not that color, this color right here. Let it live, let it live, let it be. A little bit, I'm just kind of round out that edge right there. Okay. Now I'm going to come down and go, I think we're just going to add 2. I need to make myself some more color. Yeesh. I have a tendency to not mix up enough color. It happens. Add a little bit more of that burnt sienna. Ooh, loving that. Loving that pinky color. Okay. Let's go ahead down here. Still using that like as my guide point, coming down, coming around and flipping up. I got a lot of paint on my brush, so let's just tap some of that in. Clean off my brush a little bit. And then tap some of that out. Just kind of add a little more water here. And tap some of that color in. Clean brush. Liking that. A little more red, a little darker than the others, but that's okay. Looks dark now, but when it dries, it's not going to be as dark. Okay, let's go ahead in and do our last one. It's going to pick up quite a bit of paint. And just start at my tip here. Turn this a little bit so that you can see it. And just kind of come down and around, kind of making that little teardrop look, or paisley kind of shape. Okay, loving this. Okay, gonna go ahead and clean off my brush and just start tapping and feathering some of that color out so we don't have some of those hard lines. I've got a lot of color here, so I'm just gonna run my brush over it and kind of pull some of it up and out and away. All right, we're gonna go ahead and dry this. I'm gonna even out my little shape here. How are we doing on time? Okay. Yeah, okay. We're gonna finish this in an hour. I know it. All right, I'm digging this. It's different. Let's dry it back and see what we get. Okay, those really rosy light color is really present here, like that French rose that I was going for is kind of like between that salmon pink and that French rose is really coming through here. And here we're a little more red. We've got a little bit of that French rose going on here. So all in all, I feel like really kind of achieving that look and those values of those colors by mixing that red rose deep and that burnt sienna, these two colors together. I don't think I'm going to pull in alizarin crimson. I might pull in alizarin crimson as a finishing detail in the end, because in general, that's Perylene maroon. This is alizarin crimson. That color is pinky, but it's warmer. So kind of like a fall red apple. So I think that's going to be great. Now, got that layer, got this layer. I want to kind of focus on the body a little bit. I'm going to pull, ooh, just popped in my head. I think what we're going to do, I'm going to switch brushes real quick to a number 6. I need a smaller brush. Really, you wouldn't have to switch, but I'm going to switch because the detail here in this body is a little tighter. So I am going to use alizarin crimson. I just talked about not using it, and now I'm going to use it. And I'm going to paint that whole body, just kind of this outer shape of the body, coming across here, creating that little belly right there. It's coming out right here, coming up for the tail part, and then just hug that edge. And don't forget, like if you printed this one out and you're using this, you can cut this out to your 5x7, so no worries. Clean off my brush, get it wet, and then just use the pigment that's here, and just pop in some color here. And our value of color here, our water to paint ratio is a lot of paint and a little bit less water. kind of lost my curve there a little bit, but that's okay. I can still feel that shape of the body. So I'm going to come in and come around a little bit. So we are working, I didn't provide you with all of these details in the painting. I just gave you the outer shape, and we're actually painting in the details. So there's no right or wrong. We are winging it. And that's what kind of makes this kind of painting fun, because you're less focused on coloring inside the lines and you're more focused on just playing with your paints and water ratios, which makes it super fun. I'm going to leave this kind of dark, except I just cleaned my brush off, and I'm going to run a clean brush right along that edge just to create a little bit of lightness there. So I'm really, really digging this. Now, where am I going to go with it now? Good question. I think I'm going to come in with a little bit of Perylene Maroon and just add a few details here. That's going to be the end. And then we're going to do some background. We're going to do a little bit of a gold. I got this idea in my head. It might not work. I can visualize it. Sometimes when I visualize things, it's incredibly crystal clear and it looks brilliant, but the actuality of it is not always accurate. So we'll see. I'm going to come across the tops of our detail in our butterfly, and I'm going to use a little bit of this Perylene Maroon. We're going to experiment a little bit. I might not like it. I might not like it at all. I'm going to stick with this number 6 brush, add a little bit of Perylene Maroon down here. Okay. And then I'm just going to follow the line of what I did with at the very tops of this shape. Just kind of hook it a little bit. Clean off the brush. Clean off the brush, and then come back in with the clean brush. And we are just layering in colors. So that very first layer that we did of the entire flutter was in that color mix, where our color mix here with the quinacridone, not the quinacridone, red rose deep, and the burnt sienna. But the value of that color was a lot later, because I added a lot of water. So right now, see how I'm just kind of feathering out? I'm going between a clean brush and leaving that kind of stark detail at the top there. Clean brush, and just drawing some of that color down, but not all the way across, right? Not so that what we're seeing, because watercolors are transparent, and I am working with Davinci Watercolors, which are really transparent. I can see my layers of color up underneath and all of the layers that I've done. And we're just adding layers on top to bring this up, jack up the luminosity and bring up the glow of the painting. And that technique is called glazing. I like to call it layering because it is the same thing. So brush is wet, paper is dry, picking up a lot of pigment on the tip of this brush. We're going to do this again, and we're just going to follow that line going right across. And I'm adding a layer of that color down that's pretty thick and pretty saturated. So like a whole % milk. Hello, Darlene from Canada. Clean brush. Dry throat. Clean brush. And then just kind of feathering this out a little bit. See, I'm just kind of doing this little circular motion. Those of you who are like really big into alcohol markers, like Copic markers and things like that. I taught Copic markers for 10 years. I love Copics. One of the techniques is like that circular motion. So we're going to do that. I'm going to take my clean brush and kind of pull up and away a little bit. So I have some lights and darks. Ah, love it. Love it. All right, let's do the next three. Trying turning it a little bit this way so that you can see it. And you can see that the color palette here, even though it's pink, it's warmer. So that's kind of what I meant by the autumn. Those of you who were with me last week and I made the Gilmore Girls reference about, I am an autumn. The funny thing is my daughter and I watched Gilmore Girls the other night and that episode came on and we both just laughed. It's so funny. Okay. I am an autumn. Okay, just adding a little bit of that color there. Full strength, cleaning off my brush. And then just kind of touching the tip of my brush to the edge of that color and feathering it out a little bit. Feather, 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 feathering it out. And just letting the colors underneath it be what they are. So I've got a value of color here from lights to darks, and I'm really digging it. I think the Perylene Maroon was a good choice. Digging that. Gonna turn this way. Let's go ahead in here. There's already quite a bit of the Red Rose Deep going. So let's just add a little bit of that Perylene Maroon. Clean off my brush. Brush is wet, paper's dry. Wet into dry, and just kind of feathering or brush dancing. You'll hear me say that. Brush dancing. My brush around. Hello, Susanna. No worries. You always will have the replay and my babbling along the way. Okay, loving that. Digging it, digging it, digging it. All right, let's do the last one. Brush is wet, picking up some of that. I need a little bit more of that color. This is Perylene Maroon. I think I'm going to nerd out now. Two of my favorite Perylene Maroons brands that have this color, actually three. I'm going to say Davinci is one of my favorites, the Perylene Maroon from Daniel Smith, and then I would say the Perylene Maroon from Winsor & Newton. Although I think the Daniel Smith and the Davinci are more interesting versions of that color than the Winsor & Newton. It's wild because they're all the same pigments across the brands. I'm going to turn this way a little bit. You're going to watch me feather that out. Same pigments, but remember, different formulations. Brands are different. Just kind of running my brush over the edges here and kind of doing a little bit of a feathering motion. And by doing that, I'm just touching my brush to that very, very tip of where the color is, the edges. Preserving kind of the value of the color. So from lights to darks. We've got a lot of color here. Brush is completely clean. And I'm just feathering out my edges here. Tapping off my brush, feathering it out. Kind of using a little bit of the color that's here, maybe drawing it out a little bit in areas where I feel like you might need a little bit. And I'm digging this. I'm digging the way this looks. Okay, now I want to come back in a little bit. We're going to come back into our light salmon pink that's on our outer edge here. And this is just my brain experimenting. I've got that color right up here. I'm going to add some water. I'm just going to lift some of this color up and go around my edges here. Oh, that's way too much. Way too much. And just kind of give the edge a little bit of a boost of color. Very similarly to the way I did the shapes. Clean off your brush. Brush is wet. And then I just kind of want to feather this out a little bit. But I got to be very careful because I don't want to, I just did it right here. I don't want to go into the shape. So you're just kind of feathering out what's here. Brush is really dry. Let's add a little bit more. Feathering this out with a little bit of water. Ooh, need a little more water. kind of feathering this out. And what I'm doing, let's add a little bit more. Everything got a little bit wet here, or a little bit dry. Just adding a little, just another little layer of that pretty, pretty light pink. So we're glazing in another layer. I don't really like this harsh line that I created, so I'm going to go over it a little bit. While it's still wet, just drop in a little bit of color to kind of mask that harsh line that I created. And I think that's doing it. And I'm going to leave this because I really like what I got here as far as lights and darks. And we're bringing that color up just a little bit more so it's not so flat. I'm going to come around here. I'm choked up really far on the ferrule of the brush here because I really want to get it into some detail. And then clean off my brush. I'm going to turn this way because I think it'll be helpful to you to see what I'm doing. Turn this way. Kind of come in. I'm not going to go in between. I'm really just using this technique to for my edges. Just to kind of bring a little bit of a crispness to those edges. But very, very faint. Like it. All right, let's work our way around this way. And just kind of go around. Doing the same thing. I need a little bit more paint. Doing the same thing. Brush is wet, paper is dry. Laying in some of this color. Need to work a little quicker. Going around. Kind of going rogue here and going all the way, almost all the way around. Brush is wet, paper's dry. Just going to hit those edges a little bit and just blend and feather out that color that's there, just like we did at the top. Really, really simple technique. My husband just called. I'm going to have to call you back. I'm in the middle of a live. Add a little bit right here. My guess is he's calling me to tell me about my daughter's car because her car broke down yesterday and she was down at the other end of the street on her way home and it broke down. It happens. So we had to have it towed. And she named her car Murray, so we're hoping Murray's going to pull through. I'm sure he will. Okay. Let's see. We're going to add a little bit more. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm running low on that color, but that's okay. We're going to work with what we've got here. That's looking good. Come around to the body here. Brush is wet. Paper is dry. Pigment is wet. Going back, cleaning off my brush. Not too much water because it'll get to be a little bit much. Adding and tapping in some water here. And you can see that I'm barely getting that line to move because it was very, very dry. So I'm adding a little bit of water and a little bit of pigment and just kind of letting it do its thing. And I'm digging that. I'm liking the way that looks. I'm going to come around with a clean brush and just kind of pull away just a little bit there. I'm loving the way this looks. I want to add, I feel like I want to add just a little bit more. So we're glazing in one more layer right here at the top. I feel like I wanted the top to have a little bit more, just a little bit more of a saturation of color than the sides and the bottom here. So we're getting a little bit of contrast. There we go. There we go. Pulling some of that out. All right, I'm digging it. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave that, and then I'm going to go to, let's work on my idea of, before we come back and add some detail to the body and do the antennae, we're going to add a little bit of gold around this beautiful, beautiful butterfly. And I'm going to use quinacridone gold, this color right here. And that's going to really warm up our pinks. Even though our pinks are very autumn-like and they're very pinky, but not vibrant, we're going to add some gold around it. And that's going to give us a little bit more, it's going to warm up everything. Now, my paper, my water is tinged pink because, you know, we were working in pink. But I don't care. I think it's gonna give my quinacridone gold a little bit more. It's gonna make it a little more fun. Look at this color. I love quinacridone gold. But again, you can see wet into wet. The Davinci brand whooshes, but I call it like a controlled whoosh. It just kind of stays where you put it, but it moves a little bit. Cleaning off my brush, still working with that tinged pink I got going here. I'm just gonna dance my brush around a little bit. Bring some of that gold in here. Doo, doo, doo. Dance it around. Dance, dance, dance. Brush is kind of wet, dancing it around. And I'm not worried about going off the edge here because I'm going to cut this out. Got a little bit of that pink in there. And when that pink mixes with that quinacridone gold, look at that color. Delicious. Love it. Gonna come in with a little bit more of that quinacridone gold and drop some more wet into wet around, just right around this area. And all that is really doing is, again, I'm not glazing, I'm just dropping some of this color in and just adding a little bit more of a darker value of this quinacridone gold around the edges of the wings. So it kind of gives it a little bit more dimension. And that's enough. We're going to let it be. Okay. Digging that. Eek! Like it. Going to let it stay wet. Going to work down here, then up here, then we're going to put the antenna in. And we're going to run a few minutes over. But we're coming close to the end. I hope that you, if this is your first time doing paint and chat with me, or pause and paint, sometimes I call it pause and paint, sometimes I call it paint and chat, but it's one and the same. If this is your first time, I'd love to know if you are enjoying today's tutorial. A little bit different, not card-based, it's painting-based. Kind of talk about techniques along the way, and we paint something together. If you're just watching and not painting, and you're going to watch this on the replay and paint, the link is down below in the description, and you can download the outline of the flutter for free. See how I added a little bit more of that gold down here at the bottom, and I just kind of worked it in. And I'm just going to tap, 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 spread it out a little bit, and I'm going to leave it be. Oh, I'm loving that. All right, going to come up to my top now and add some of my, oh, thank you, Chris. First time watching. That's great. First time. I like to kind of share watercolor tutorials. This is a watercolor and paper crafting channel. So it's important to me that we don't get too far away from, oh, look how some of that gold is bled over into there. If you don't like that, all you can do is you can go back over it with a clean wet brush or cleanish wet brush and kind of pull it up and away. Digging that. That's part of watercolor, though, letting things kind of blend together and do their things. And remember, watercolor will only go where the water is. So there was clearly a little bit of water over here that it saw like, whoosh, I'm going to go in. I'm going to go in and have some fun. All right, digging this. Going to move this around. Tap, tap, tapping this out. Just kind of moving it around. And I'm going to feather this out a little bit, this pigment. See how it's kind of granulated a little bit. I'm going to just feather it out a little bit and add a little tiny bit more to this edge. And that's just to get a little contrast going. I'm digging this. All right. Sometimes when your brain says stop, listen, because I felt myself getting ready to overwork this whole thing. Now I'm going to go ahead in and dry this. Then we're going to add some details and add that antenna back in, and I think we're going to be done. Woo! Thank you, Cheryl. Today I'm just enjoying watching you paint, but we'll give this a try. Yay! I love that. Sometimes, friends, I like to enjoy watching paintings happen, and then it just gives me inspiration to either paint it or not, right? Susanna, oh, thank you. Not painting along today. That's okay. That's the beautiful thing about all of these painting tutorials on my channel. You can always come back to them. Sometimes they're seasonal, sometimes they're not, but whatever. You could always change up your colors. I've got a small brush here. What am I using? A number 3. I'm picking up some alizarin crimson, and I'm just going to follow my line for the antennae. And just let that be just the way it is. Instead of resisting the urge, you know what I might do? I just changed my mind. I'm going to pick up some more of that alizarin crimson. I'm going to come to my edge here, and I'm just going to whoop, hook it to get a little curly cue on the end there. All right, digging that. All right, now we've got a lot of texture and dimension here. It's 1 o'clock. I'm going to take our last few minutes to come in with a little bit of white gouache. Maybe. We'll see how this works out. In my head, I think it's going to work. It worked actually on that other painting. But I'm going to add a little bit of detail to this top piece. And then we may stop. I want to add like a leafery. We'll see if my paint, yeah, I hadn't opened this gouache. So this is a Holbein permanent white gouache paint. I have lots of different brands, but basically it's just a white paint. Gouache is water soluble. It's more opaque. You could take one of these gouache tubes, mix it with any color in your watercolor palette, and create colored gouache. You don't have to buy all the different gouache colors. You could do that if you wanted to. All right, I'm going to go back to my number 6. And we're going to just do an edge. I'm going to paint. I'm going to come in here. It might be a little, it might end up getting tinged a little bit pink. We'll see. I'm going to come in here. I've got quite a bit of this on the tip of my brush. I'm up on the edge of my ferrule of my brush here. And I'm just going to follow that line, but kind of on the outer edge of that line. And I'm going to add a little bit of this white here. Does 2 things. It really brings your eye towards the darker color underneath. And it's kind of fun. I was going to do some leafery. But you know what I think I'm going to do is I'm not going to do the leaf free. See, my brain is rewiring in real time. See how I did the leaf free in here? I think it's appropriate and it worked really well here. But what I'm really, really liking about adding this white right now, around, I'm going to go around all of these edges. What I'm really liking is that it is drawing your attention. It's adding another dimension. And it's drawing your attention to the color underneath it. So it's adding highlight. And you could have just stopped where you were. But I'm digging this. I think it's cool. So we're going to finish out this thought. Just following around the edges here. Boop. And that kind of went around a little bit too far, but that's okay. Pick up a little bit more here. I'm going to turn this way. You could skip this part. If you don't have gouache, you don't need gouache. If you have a white paint, like a white acrylic paint, you could use that. If you have Dr. P.H. Martin's, I'm going to clean off my brush real quick. You could use that. I'm going to use the tip of my brush and just kind of feather that edge out. Like feather that white edge out so it's not harsh. Let that go. So didn't plan to do this way. It's created this cute little highlight that I'm kind of digging. All right. How am I? Am I in the frame here? There we go. Let's just go like this. So technically this painting becomes more of a mixed media painting because I added gouache. You could also do this with a white Uniball Signo pen or any kind of white gel pen just to add that little bit of highlight. And here's why I liked that idea instead of doing the leaf free. That detail of those shapes just immediately popped. Now, because one more thing, taking my smaller brush into my white paint, if you're using a white gel pen, this is perfect. This would be perfect for that. I'm just going to go into the body of this beautiful little butterfly and add little dots to make her fancy. Little polka dot butterfly. And I think that's just kind of fun. And I had the thought of doing a couple little things inside of her shape. Maybe. Let's just add maybe just a few little dots. And depending upon the pressure that you put with your brush, if you're using like Dr. P.H. Martin's white, perfect. If you're using a pen, even better. You have a lot of control with a pen. And that's it. I'm going to resist the urge to add more details because I think she's super fun and whimsical, and I'm digging the way she looks. So here was the original inspiration. She is bright and very vibrant and very like fairy-like. Was that color palette. This color palette for our flutter is more autumn. We've got our deep, rich rose colors. And remember, the primary color mix to create that rosy, light, deep color was red rose deep. So you could use a permanent rose, and we added the burnt sienna, a little bit of brown. To get more of that aubergine-like color, you could do the red rose deep. And then I added a little bit of the stormy blue, and that gave me that color right there, this color right here. Was it this color? Yeah, it was this color right here, which has more of a undertone of a purple undertone. So I'm really digging the way this came out. I think the quinacridone gold, adding that gold around the butterfly, really kind of jacked up the luminosity, gave the wing a whole lot more texture. I mean, it gave it a little bit more of a 3D effect, adding the little polkas and adding a little bit of the white gouache on top. you know, kind of transformed this into more of a mixed media project, and then also gave it a little bit of highlight, which, you know, super fun. Okay, friends. Woo! Okay, I ran 7 minutes over. I started to think I was going to get this done in an hour, but then my brain started going. And there were like 3 more things I thought we could add to this, but there's also a time and a place for knowing when to stop because you have experimented enough. And that just takes like intuition, trusting your intuition, and maybe trusting the time that you have to put into something. But I hope you got a lot out of today's tutorial. Super fun. Didn't have it pre-planned, had kind of a sense in my head of where we were going to go with it, but pause and paints and paint and chats like this are more about experimenting, talking about some techniques, and playing them out. So I hope that you really enjoyed that today and that format. Okay, friends, I will be back next week with a brand new card tutorial on Thursday with the holiday release for Gina K Designs. My new holiday stamp set will be coming out. And friends, it is going to set the pace for some fall, autumn, holiday card making projects and series into the fall. And let me know either later or email or here in the chat if you enjoyed today's pause and paint, if this is something you're really, really interested in. If you're interested in going deeper with me in watercolor and more like finite and specific techniques that you don't see here on my YouTube channel, please feel free to join us in my free community at craftyourjoylab.com. The information is listed down below in the description. You can also check out my online classroom at craftyourjoy.com. I have a lot of watercolor classes over there that are available to you. Okay. And there's also a coupon code down below in the description for $5 off any class. You could use it for any of them or all of them, and have some fun with that. And get on my email list if you would like to get more information about all these things, right? Oh, Marie said this was fun. Butterfly is a hot mess. Remember, Marie, I have painted this pseudo flutter, similar flutter, many times. So paint it again. Print it out, paint it again, practice it with some different color combinations, and just have some fun with it. Okay, friends, thanks so much. I'm sending you into the weekend to craft your joy, and I'll see you next week. And bye now, friends.